Okay, let's see. Sharing. Trying to make sure it's progressing. Okay. All right, people are hopping on. And Sky, from your view, you can see me as well, right?
Yeah, everything looks good.
Okay. Awesome. This is always the fun part, waiting for everybody to get on. Okay. All right, looks like some people are hopping on, so we'll just give everybody a few more minutes. I always feel like we should have some waiting room music or something. It's awkward silence while we wait for everyone to kind of get in so we can get started. And as you're coming in, feel free to just say hello. You can put your name in the questions area and make sure it's sent to all. And then you can add what your biggest block is or pattern or challenge if you feel like sharing that with us. And I'll probably say that a few more times as more people hop on. All right, looks like we have quite a few. Okay, all right, it's like a lot are coming in now, so that's exciting. Yeah, and welcome again. If you're just hopping on, feel free to say hello in the questions area, and you can write what's your biggest challenge or block or pattern, because we're going to be kind of talking through how to work through that in the presentation. So if you feel like sharing, go ahead and pop that in the questions area. Maybe not your biggest one if you don't feel comfortable, but anything that's kind of coming up for you. Okay. All right, I'll just give everybody a couple more minutes to get started. I always joke that it's funny that we're living this like remote virtual life now, right? A lot of us, but we're always late to webinars or meetings, even when we don't have to commute. But it's just our human nature, right? I do it all the time. Awesome, this is exciting. Lots of people jumping in. It's gonna be fun. All right, I think we'll give it to maybe 11:01 or 11:02, just so we don't miss too many late comers. And let's see, anything coming in the questions? Okay, biggest block is consistency and follow through. Yeah, that's a big one. Really, really big. Very common. Hey, Ramon, good to see you. Kind of see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Ramon has attended my live personal or in-person workshops in San Francisco, so glad you're here. Biggest challenge is monkey brain. Yep, during meditation. Need to work on quieting my thoughts. Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about that today. So I'm glad you shared that. Thanks for sharing it. Okay, wow, people are still coming in. So we'll give it about another minute here. Awesome. Okay, yeah, and for those of you who just joined us, you can just take a second, say hello if you feel like just typing your name and maybe where you're from in the questions area, and then you can add what your biggest block or pattern is or challenge and kind of share that with all of us. And again, if you're not comfortable sharing your biggest one, it can just be a little thing, right? Like whatever's coming up for you. So let's see if we have any. Hi, Christine from Denver. Welcome. I love Denver. Been there many times. I'm sure the weather is great there. It's always pretty nice. Okay. I think we can get started. It looks like we have a big crew today, so I'm excited. Anything else? Oh, we had a few more come in. Upstate New York. Yes, that's where I'm from, so I know it well. Oh, found the questions panel. Oh, hey, Ken. Ken also went to my live workshop, so welcome. And then biggest block is finishing what I've started. Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people, for sure. That kind of self-distraction and sometimes a bit of self-sabotage there. Awesome. Okay. All right, let's get started. So I will say it one more time for the new ones. Go ahead, say hello. You can add your biggest block or challenge into the chat box. And yeah, we're going to kind of talk through a few of them later. I always just want to know where everybody's coming from. Oh, we have a ton of coming from and kind of like what's coming up for you. Albany. Okay, wow. Anything else? Yep, finding me time. Big one, personal time. Time management. Okay, Rochester. Awesome. Yeah, I am from Binghamton, New York originally, so I know the area well. Okay, and then yeah, and I will share mine. So I'm Nicole. We're going to talk a little bit more about, you know, who I am and what I do. But my biggest block and challenge was, because it's in the past now, I've worked through a lot of it, but just this kind of belief that I have to do it all on my own, right? That everything is just me, I have to be ultra independent. And that was a huge block in my personal and business life. So just to kind of share mine in case that helps you guys feel a little more comfortable. And this is one that I worked through with a lot of these exercises and a lot of the training that I've done. So, okay. Awesome. Oh, a few more coming in. Self-doubt and unnecessary anxiety. Okay, yep, fear of the future. Thank you guys for sharing. That's huge. Okay. All right, I'm gonna close the chat box on my side. Sky is here moderating for us, and she's a huge help. See, I'm already overcoming that block, asking for support. And she is going to be able to kind of, you know, answer any questions or present any questions that you guys have throughout the presentation. So feel free to leave them in that questions area and she can come on and just kind of, you know, intervene and we can get those answered for you guys. And then of course, we're gonna have some time at the end. So looking forward to it. All right. So today, as you know, we are talking about redesigning your subconscious mind. And this is for true transformation. So sustainable transformation is what we're always after, right? There's a lot of quick fixes out there, a lot of solutions that promise kind of like overnight results, but we are looking for something that's sustainable and long-term. So we're going to talk about that today. Okay, so who am I? I know we've done a bunch of these so far. I think this is our third or fourth one. So some of you might be familiar with me, especially if you're hopping on from my in-person workshops and teachings in the Bay Area. But I am Nicole Raimondi. I'm a mindset coach. I'm a mindfulness trainer and an NLP practitioner and the founder of Self by Design. So I created this Self by Design method that supports my clients and students through this kind of process that I created. And so I work mostly with executives, managers, and entrepreneurs in creating their vision and getting clear on that. And my difference is, and this is why I'm so excited to talk about this today, is the focus on the subconscious mind over the conscious mind, right? Like I teach mindfulness, I do a lot of mindfulness training, but it's really our subconscious mind that mindfulness allows us to access, right? And so that's where all of our beliefs, habits, and emotions are housed. So if you're not diving into the subconscious mind and those patterns and those habits and even those beliefs that you're holding, you are not going to be able to consciously and sustainably change what you want or improve what you want in your life. And so I really created that and, put that into the method that I've designed. And I also bring a lot of neuroscience, so the brain and the hardware that we're working on and psychology and spirituality into this kind of holistic approach to mastering the power of your mind. Because I feel like these areas are usually very separate and siloed, and the biggest benefit we can get is from them communicating to each other. All right. So a little bit more just about me and my story, because some of you might be wondering, okay, why is she here talking to us about this today? Kind of what's my background and my story? And for me, I was chronically unwell, I say, for 15 years or so, a big portion of my life. And physically, mentally, emotionally, I just was very disconnected and just struggling with a lot of symptoms that were presenting. And so I went to all the traditional doctors and didn't really make much headway, was taking a ton of medications, surgeries, the whole things, right? And wasn't making really strides in the right direction. And then I found a kind of naturopathic alternative route, made some progress, realized that lifestyle has a lot to do with it, right? Diet, nutrition, fitness, and ended up going that route for a period of time, which was a bigger step in the right direction. But I definitely hit a plateau. And when I finally hit that plateau, I was really just depressed and anxious. I was living in New York City at the time, and I just kind of changed my whole life. I moved to Los Angeles, and I really had a lot of time for introspection and a lot of time to just think about what was really coming up for me and really dive into what was really going on. And I was able to come to the realization that it was my mind, it was my identity, it was my beliefs, it was my self-dialogue, right? And all of these things that were keeping me stuck and unwell and sick in a lot of ways that I had never really explored. And so from there, I would say over that year of my life, I did more healing and growing and progressing than I did in the prior 15 before that. And I really just wanted to share that with others. And so I dove into the neuroscience behind it and went back to Stanford and studied neuroscience and psychology. I did a lot of training in neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, right? I just dove into this area in this arena and kind of had this fascination and this love affair, I call it, with the mind, and really wanted to share that with others. And so that's why I do these free webinars. And I'm so thankful for ENI, the EAP program that has allowed us to have this platform and bring you all on and kind of share this wealth and this knowledge, because I think it's something that we all need to know, and we all should have the tools and methodologies for managing our mind and mastering our mind to create that life that we've imagined, because it is so exponentially powerful. All right. So what we're going to learn today and what we're talking about, of course, with the subconscious mind, is kind of divided into these three big areas. So I first want to talk about the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind, right? We want to know what we're working with here. Then we're going to talk about the power of your subconscious mind, because it is extremely powerful. And again, I was not aware of this for most of my life, and I feel like this is a crime that we are just not aware of how much this area of the mind is running our patterns and our behaviors and ultimately our life. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to redesign the subconscious mind exercises. And those of you who've been on these webinars before, you know that I never just give you the education and leave you without the tools or without an opportunity to try it on, right? Because you want to experience it. And so many of us are just learning things, but we're not trying them or practicing them or experiencing them. So we're going to do that at the end of this masterclass. All right, so the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. So this is kind of conscious intention setting. This is 98% of clients that come to me, right? Or even when we start off the mindfulness trainings, is you have all the best of intentions, right? You say you want to start exercising daily, eating healthy, meditating every morning, making time for your business. What else do we have here? Working on creative projects, being a better friend, partner, coworker, etc. Right? You're setting that from your conscious mind, but you're not really seeing those results. It can also look like, and I have a lot of this, and I was definitely in this space for a while too, where you're like, I'm reading all the books, I'm taking all the courses, you know, I say deep diving into YouTube holes because I would get on YouTube and like watch all these personal growth, you know, videos. And I know a lot of people are doing that as well. Maybe you're going to expensive weekend retreats and seminars, and you're doing all these things to improve yourself consciously, right? But the problem is the conscious mind sets the intention, right? So consciously, you know, okay, I want to change this in my life, but the subconscious mind is holding all of the power. It's holding all those patterns and those beliefs and those emotions that are going to be driving and supporting the conscious mind and creating that. And so this is one of my favorite quotes. And I know a few of you that have been to my live workshops have seen this one before, because I think I said this in every workshop, and I say it to just about every you know, person I encounter in my client and student relationships. Okay, so why is this, right? That's because the conscious mind is only 5% of your mind. And this is kind of this top layer. I'll show you a better visual after this slide, but it's only that 5% of the mind that's responsible for critical thinking, analytical thinking, short-term memory, and willpower, right? So you're using your conscious mind when you're making a decision, or you're really just, processing a lot of different pieces, analyzing, and you're much more cognitive of things. The subconscious mind, though, is 95% of the mind. And that's housing all of your beliefs, emotions, habits, long-term memory, your creativity and imagination. So a lot of artists are really able to like dive deep into that subconscious mind and just get really into, those emotions and those feelings that are coming up. And it's also running all of your biological processes. So it is exponentially more powerful than the conscious mind. And I want people to understand that if we don't look at the subconscious mind, then you're just tipping the top of the iceberg, which I'm going to show you in a second here. So again, this is basically the same information, but I just want you to see that the kind of visual, because visuals are very powerful for our subconscious mind. We're going to talk about that a little later, but I just want you to see the visual of how much of the conscious mind is above the surface, right? That's what you're aware of. That's your awareness of the world around you. Again, that critical thinking, analytical thinking, that willpower, and then what's really driving it, what's really supporting it is the subconscious mind. And another analogy that I often use in coaching and that I think is supportive of a lot of people is the computer analogy. And I used to hate this analogy. I learned it in school originally, but I think it actually does really bring things together. And I learned this, of course, in neuroscience. So the brain is kind of the hardware that we're operating, right? Like we want to know about the tools that we're using. And this is why I love neuroscience, because it teaches us about the nervous system and about the neurons and the connections and the energy that's moving through them, right? We want to know about the hardware. But the subconscious mind is the programs on that hardware, on that system. And those programs were usually created from anywhere from 0 to 7 is when you have most of your programs, right? It's like when you're building a computer, you're going to say, okay, what programs need to be on this computer? Because we're in this building stages, we're in the foundational stages. And so that is when a lot of us got these programs and models of the world from our caretakers and from culture at such a young age, right? And the conscious mind is always the programmer. So just going back to when you're super young, your conscious mind is wide open, right? It's kind of like that's all this information is coming in and you're watching it and you're recreating it and you're creating those models of the world. But as we get older, that programmer kind of starts to narrow down because you have your programs for the world, you have your systems and your patterns, and that conscious mind becomes more of a gatekeeper, like, ooh, does that fit? Okay, no, then we don't need it. Is that going to take more energy from us or give us energy? Nope, we don't need it. And I will say that too about the subconscious is it's always trying to preserve energy for you, right? So this is working for you in a way. If you have all these patterns and programs that you are running on autopilot, you don't have to think about, okay, like get up in the morning, take 2 steps out of bed, get into the bathroom, brush my teeth, flush the toilet, whatever. You don't have to go through these tiny little micro actions because you can think about, oh, what should I be doing today? Who do I want to see? Because you're automatically running those programs. So it's supporting you in one regard, but there's often a lot of programs and beliefs and behaviors that are no longer supporting you, right? And that's the space that I had to be in several years ago. I mean, I will always be in that space doing those pieces, but was really heavily in that piece looking at those programs that were no longer serving me. Okay, so let's talk about the power of your subconscious, because like I said, this is the powerhouse. This is driving your behavior, and the conscious mind is really just should be leading it, but the subconscious mind is the power and the force behind it. Okay, and just to give you a little context on actually how powerful the subconscious mind is, if you think about it, your subconscious is responsible for running every single biological process in your body, right? It's like pumping your blood, breathing air into your lungs, it's moving your feet, all of these different processes at once, right? Like hundreds of thousands of processes. And we're over here, like me this morning is like, okay, let's take a look at my to-do list. Like what's coming up today? Let me check off these 3 things, right? So just think about the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And I think we just don't give it enough credit for what it's really doing for us and all these programs that it is actually executing on when you're trying to just consciously execute on a few. And this is the primal, most ancient part of your brain, right? So this is created much more, historically and evolutionary further than the conscious part of the brain, which is more the neocortex, kind of the newer human evolution of our brain. And they often call it the mammalian brain. So again, it's a powerhouse. This is just, it's been around a lot longer. It's had a lot more time to grow and to create these patterns. And this contains who you are at an identity level. So this is the highest level of change. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And this might be something that some of you have seen before, but I always want to repeat it and make sure that you guys understand this. And I truly, truly believe, I've seen it, I've experienced it, that all true change, healing, and transformation happens at the subconscious level. So instead of practicing something or setting the intention to do something or even trying to do something, you're being it, right? Like you're working at the identity level, and that's where all of that is housed in the subconscious mind. Okay, so levels of change. And again, if you've been on my webinars before, you know that this is one of my favorite diagrams, and it is so powerful for this discussion as well, right? So when we want to change something, whatever that is, like for me, it was the belief that I have to do it all on my own, or if you have a fear of the unknown, or if you, what else did we say in the questions, are trying to change your monkey mind in meditation, or whatever that is. We often start at the behavior or even the environment level, right? We're really working on these lower rungs, and you're like, no, I'm gonna do it differently today, right? Like this time I'm gonna ask for help, and this time I'm gonna not like quiet my mind, and you're gonna try to do that at a behavioral level. Well, the problem is you haven't gotten to the higher rungs of identity and your values and beliefs, and that's where the subconscious is running and driving that behavior. So if we're working at those higher rungs, it's gonna cascade down to your capabilities, to your behaviors and those patterns, and then to your environment ultimately. So we always wanna be working at the identity and values and beliefs level. And that should always align, and that's kind of your higher self, right? And a little bit of the spirituality where that comes in with your purpose, right? Like what are you designed to do? What are you here for? What's your why? And that will help you cascade down to, okay, moving at an identity level, who am I being? And then values and beliefs, what do I believe to create this and change these behaviors? So and I love this quote too. I just want to say this before I move to the last piece, but and I have a ton of quotes in all of my presentations, but Albert Einstein said, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it, right? And he was a guy that was solving a lot of problems all the time. And he understood that if you're working at a lower level trying to solve a problem that is, was created at that level, you need to move to a higher level and see it from an identity level, see it from that belief and value level, and then let that cascade down. Is there any questions or anything coming up? I thought I heard something. Oh, okay. Okay, so let's put this kind of, bring it full circle for you guys and put it into practice a bit. So this is a example that I often give, and I call it the surfer mentality, right? So especially me, I just moved to San Diego about a month ago. There's a lot of surfers out here, and nobody's born a surfer, right? A lot of people came in with the intention, especially moving here, like, I want to learn how to surf. But there's a difference between going in and saying, I'm trying to be a surfer, I'm learning how to be a surfer, I'm practicing how to be a surfer, and I am a surfer, right? So just assuming that identity right away. Like if you're getting up and going to the beach, even, once a week on the weekend, you are much more a surfer than some guy sitting in a high rise in New York City, right? Like you have to assume that identity first before you see it in your outward reality. And so it's kind of, working from that level, that higher level, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to just practice every day until I become a surfer. No, you are a surfer. Show up that way first. And then what are the values that a surfer would have? So connection to nature, right? A healthy lifestyle, introspection, time, self-mastery. Like what are they valuing, and kind of restructuring your values around that and making sure those feel connected to you. Because if you are moving from a place of this being connected to your values, it is going to be, again, much, much easier to change and a much more sustainable shift than if you are doing surfing because your girlfriend thinks it's cool, right? You want to connect to yourself and make sure that's aligned with your values and the values of somebody that enjoys and is, has a thriving lifestyle because of surfing. And then beliefs. So again, changing those beliefs around you as the surfer. So maybe you had a fear that your body is not capable of managing the waves and being a good surfer. You want to switch that belief that you have a strong, capable body and mind. You want to believe that there's always room for progress, right? You don't want to believe like, oh, if I go out there and I do it once, I'm going to be a failure, and then it's going to be painful, and then my friends are going to laugh at me, right? That's a belief that, no, I don't care how many times you say you're going to be a surfer and you want to be in this competition like next fall, that is going to hold you back if you believe that. So you want to switch to that mindset of there's room for progress, I'm learning, I'm growing, and move into that system. And then maybe it's, I'm going to be a better person because of surfing, right? So you're challenging yourself, you're growing, and you're moving every day. So because of this lifestyle shift, because of this interest of yours, you are a better, more integrated person. Then I would guarantee you will become, because you already are being it, a better surfer than anyone else that's said for the last 6 months that they would love to try surfing and maybe go out on the weekend or something, right? So you're being it before you actually really see it, and you're showing up with those values and beliefs.
Hey,
Okay.
Nicole.
Oh, yep. Go ahead, Sky.
Yeah, so Ramon had a question, or actually Jeff had a question. He said, how do you get to who you want to be versus who you seem to be?
So I would say the first way to kind of break that down is you really want to ask yourself, who do I want to be? Just creating that space for that introspection and that time, and setting that vision and that goal for, okay, where is that marker? How am I moving, and who do I want to become? Because I think a lot of us don't even ask that question, right? And then that's your destination, that's your goal. And then you want to see, yeah, where am I? How much space, I don't even want to say how far, but how much space is between me and the person I'm becoming. So it's like a Google Maps, I like to think about it, where you plop the destination in, right? But it has to know where you're moving from. If it doesn't know that you're coming from, X place on the map, then how are you ever going to get there? So you want to mark out, okay, who do I want to be? Who am I becoming? Where is that place on the map? And then where am I now? And then that space in between is going to be this work that we're talking about today, right? What is holding me back? Why am I not? How do I close this gap? Why am I not where I want to be or feel like I can be in life, right? And looking at those patterns and programs that aren't serving you because they were supportive of you for an earlier time in your life, right? A different time in your life. And I never want to say that they're bad or they're, you know, just like a negative pattern or behavior, because they're not. They just aren't working for you in maybe the person that you are today, and especially not the person you're becoming. So it's really just kind of doing that work in the middle to disassemble those patterns and then create those new ones to move towards that place on the map that you want to be. So I hope that answers your question. Anything else coming up, Sky?
Not yet.
Okay. Oops. We're popping around. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, that's a great question kind of leading into this. Let's talk about redesigning the subconscious mind and what we can do to create those new patterns and those new literal neural pathways to design the person that we're becoming and to move towards that next level of ourselves. Okay, so I just want to say this before we kind of dive into it, because you are responsible for continually redesigning and recreating yourself, right? Nobody else. Like if you don't ever sit down and say, yeah, who do I want to become? What do I want out of life? Then you probably are not ever going to move there as quickly as maybe you can or you'd want to be, right? Because of course change is going to happen naturally for sure, but you want to be that designer and that creator. You want to set that place on the map and that direction to where you're moving. So I just want to say, you know, kind of remind us that like we have the power. You want to take that power back and that responsibility and then design that version of yourself. And so my job is not to do that for you. I've definitely had quite a few clients come in and think that I'm doing it for them, because I'm doing it with you. I'm empowering you with the tools and the methodologies to do this work essentially for yourself. I'm a guide, right? I'm a knowledge source. You know, I'm kind of like providing that for you, but you have to be the one to show up and do that work for yourself at each new level. And it's kind of like teaching a man how to fish. Once you have these tools, like, right, like I have a lot of tools now that I didn't have before. Now every level is going to present new challenges. I have new things come up, but I feel equipped to encounter them and work through them because I have these systems already built in, and I have these tools for myself to move to the next level. And then I want to say this. So the reason why I call this redesign instead of reprogram, even back to the computer analogy, is I really don't believe that we are these machines. I think that's why I was so turned off by it when I first heard that analogy in class, but it does make a good visual. But you really are a work of art, right? So you're not going in and like, you know, you're like tapping in these new programs and then just like upgrading your machine like you would upgrade the iOS system on your phone or something, right? This is art. You're trying new things on, you're designing, you're visualizing, you're creating. Like I want this to be much more fluid and kind of take the pressure off and just give the power back to you as that artist and as that designer. So I wanted to kind of update the analogy, and this, if I was to teach this class again, I would add that you are the designer. So that's the most important piece to this computer analogy. And I think why this resonates most strongly with me and why I teach it in my coaching is I started off my career as a graphic designer. Then I moved to a UX designer, so designing apps and websites. And I learned, and of course I'm a little biased here, but I learned that the most important piece to designing an app, to creating a new backend system or whatever that is the design, right? It's the artistry, it's the creativity, it's deciding what do I want to create, how is this going to support people? And so you want to take back that ownership and power as the designer, and then the programs are really just what's supporting that design, right? Those subconscious programs, that's just going to move you towards what you decided is what you're creating. So I just wanted to make that point and show you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually have a question. So how would you kind of start to establish your design for yourself? Do you think that you should maybe have like a notebook where you kind of lay out your goals, or what would you say is the first step to picturing your ultimate ideal goal?
Yeah, I think the first step, and I kind of touched upon it a little bit before, is that a lot of us just aren't giving us the space to ask ourselves, what do we really want? And I would encourage you to ask yourself several times, because usually the first answer is the surface level answer, And that's, again, more the conscious mind. But ask yourself 2 or 3 times, like, what do I really want in this life? Like, what do I really want to be remembered for? Who do I want to show up as? And what do I want to create? And like giving yourself that space for those questions. And that's always the first step, because most of us don't even take time for that space. And then, especially for me, I've had people show up and they're like, I don't even know what I want to create in the world. Like, I have literally no idea. Well, it's not that you don't know, you just haven't given yourself the space for it to come through. And so possibly you want to work in a coaching container or work with a therapist or whoever that is to create that space for it to come through. But that's the most important piece. And once you have that vision and that space for it to come through, then you can work with somebody or do some journaling prompts or whatever that is to get really clear on what that looks like. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But that clarity is what creates that in your reality. So if you just say, I'm trying to think of like an easy one, but like let's say you want to be the surfer, right? And you're just like, I just want to be a surfer. So, well, what does that mean? Are you a surfer? Again, yeah, if you show up like once a month and you've done it a few times, maybe, but I would have to guess that you want to be a surfer that wins a competition or whatever, right? And so you would get super clear on what does that feel like when you're winning that competition? What does your home look like, because your boards are hanging up next to you and you wake up in the morning and you have a strong cup of coffee and then you grab the one that's most suited for you for the day, or whatever that is. You want to work either through journal prompts or with somebody to get super ultimately like crystal clear on what that vision looks like for what you're creating. And then it will be so much easier for both of your minds, conscious mind and subconscious mind, to work towards that vision. So I hope that helps. And definitely, Scott, yeah, let me know if anything else comes up. Okay, so yeah, that being said, you want to be the artist, right? Like I like to say, I've said this before a lot too, is you are the artist, you're creating this life, you're deciding on what do you want and what's your vision, and then you're also the art, right? As you're creating it and designing it, and you're painting it, let's say, on this canvas, like you're creating yourself, you're reprogramming, redesigning yourself. And so I just want to like let everybody know that that's kind of our role in life, and like give you that power back and that permission to pick up the paintbrush, pick up the pen, whatever it is, and become the artist again of your own life and of your desires. Okay, so I'm going to go into kind of 3 different ways for redesigning the subconscious mind, or at least really tapping into the power of it. And the first one is connecting the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And again, I feel very well equipped to do this because of all my mindfulness training, conscious mind, right? But then I was recognizing in mindfulness training that they weren't making the connection to the subconscious mind. So you can be aware all day of your patterns and of what's happening around you and have this intuition, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not tying that to the subconscious mind and changing those behaviors, or designing this new version of yourself, or getting into kind of these old beliefs, habits, emotions, et cetera, you're not going to see sustainable change. You might be able to hold it for a little bit with willpower or discipline or whatever, but you're not going to see long-term change. So the goal is the connection and collaboration between the two. And this comes from a lot of Carl Jung's work, a famous Swedish psychologist. And he says, this is one of my favorite quotes, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, right? So taking that those habits, those emotions, those beliefs underneath the iceberg and resurfacing them so they're conscious, and then you can decide, does this work for me, does this not work for me, and then redesign it so it can become more habitual and unconscious, subconscious again, and support you in moving forward. Okay, so how do we do that? And again, this is the first step, but it is a huge, huge step. And I just want to bring us home to it. Of course, these are called mindfulness masterclasses, right? And this is that mindfulness piece, but it is a piece that so many of us are surpassing. And I don't want us to kind of bypass it and just move into the reprogramming, the patterning. It's that creating that awareness and that mindfulness for yourself. So it's always, again, just what Carl Jung was saying, making the unconscious conscious. So bringing it to the surface so you can rewrite it. And the way to do that is to become the observer of your life. Like you want to be constantly kind of monitoring and tuning into your thoughts, your beliefs, and your patterns. And the way that I was able to make this shift is really just recognizing that I am not my thoughts. I can choose my thoughts. And it sounds so simple now saying it when I say it out loud, but I really 100% believed and lived my life where I have something that happens to me in the external world, and then whatever I think about it or whatever I feel about it is the truth. And that's the pattern, right? But you have a choice. You have the ability to change your thoughts about it, choose a different thought, and create again that new version of yourself, but without becoming the observer and having the awareness of what's coming up for you and what thoughts are occurring, then you really can't change it, right? Because then it's still unconscious. You can't see it. So you want to make it conscious and notice it. And when we do that process, you always want to stay non-judgmental. So that was another block that I ran into a lot of clients and people run into, where, okay, you're noticing it, you're aware of it, but you instantly judge yourself because you say, oh, like I had that thought or that behavior or that reaction, like that was so wrong of me, or that I don't want to think that, or it's causing anxiety, right? And you immediately judge it. Well, now you've just taken a lot of energy from your conscious mind. You put it back into kind of fight or flight mode, survival mode, right? And so we don't want to move into that judging space. We want to move into a space where we're just kind of curious, like, oh, there it is. That happened again. Like this was said and that I felt this. That's interesting. That's happened to me 3 times this week, right? And it's not a bad thing. It's just that's the reality. That's what's happening for you right now. I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm sure it supported you earlier in life, but just recognizing like, okay, got it. That's happening. I'm aware of it now. Now you can move to the step of adding choice back in. And do I want to shift that or change that or improve that about myself? And I like to say that meditation and mindfulness are just training for this, right? So many people want to just, do some meditation or learn about mindfulness, but it is 1000% just training and just like the practice mode for taking that out into real life. So meditating, you recognize, okay, thoughts are coming up, but do I have to grab them? Do I have to believe them? Do I have to act on them? No, you're training yourself to know, that thought popped up, but let me get curious. Is that true? Is that supportive of me? Do I want to keep this thought, right? And you're becoming that non-judgmental observer over and over again. And you do that enough when you're in a low stress, calm state, then you can do it at a higher level in your life when that thing is said or when that event happens, and you can kind of try on, wait a second, now I've created a bit of space. Do I want to have this thought? Do I need to believe this about the situation? And another quote, of course, I'm like filling this whole thing with quotes. I love quotes, but Pema Chodron says, "You are the sky. Everything else is just the weather." So when I heard that, it just really resonated with me that you are that observer. You are the sky, the room, the space, whatever it is, and your thoughts are just passing. They're just weather patterns that come in or objects in the room or however you want to take that analogy, but just knowing that you are that awareness. You get to decide and choose and be that source of consciousness for those thoughts or more, objectified pieces that are coming in. And again, that's all meditation really is. At the most basic level, that is meditation. Okay, so how do we add choice back in? Because if this didn't come up in the questions, I'm sure it would. And whenever I have these conversations one-on-one, that's always the next question. And so I brought up this diagram this was from a previous training as well, but I think it's extremely important to remember this and to see this. And so adding choice back in, this is kind of the unconscious loop here, or the subconscious loop, right? This is an old pattern or program, is we want to notice, okay, thought or stimulus is coming in, right? So here's that cloud, here's that new entrant into the room or that new object or whatever, right? And that's what's happening in your external world. Then we usually have an emotion about it, right? Instantly, and this is subconscious, it's all happening without your awareness. Instantly you feel something, right? Like you have a thought, I feel bad, I feel angry, I feel frustrated. Then you have a behavior that follows it. And it could be small, it could be, I go in and close my door, I stop expressing myself, or it could be a large behavior that's a little more, just expressed, right? And then you have your results. As always, a behavior is going to have consequences. It's going to have a result, positive or negative. And so what I would encourage you to do in this process is add in, do I have my mouse here? I guess you guys can't see my mouse, but add in between that thought and stimulus and that emotion, know that if you can create a pause and add choice back in, now you've just taken it from your subconscious where there's really no choice. It's making a choice for you because it thinks it's helping you and doing this based on the past. Now you want to add choice back into this loop or this system and really change the pattern, change the loop. And what you're actually doing in your brain and in your neurology is you're creating a new neural network. So you're literally taking those neurons and like disconnecting it because you've been running this pattern 1,000 million times before, and you're reconnecting it to another area in your brain or another pattern or choice, right? And so the kind of analogy to think about this is I love to hike as well. And so let's say you're like hiking the same trails over and over again. And then let's say like one Saturday I show up and I'm like, you know what? I think today I'm gonna go off into the woods and like see what happens, and I'm just gonna like have an adventure, right? And so I do that and I'm like, oh, that was fun and that felt good, and I found this amazing waterfall and I met this like cool person and like there was this awesome rock formation. I want to do that again. Well, you are gonna have to run that pattern several times in repetition to create that new pathway, right? Because that's a new pathway. It feels good. You ran it once, but you want to do it multiple times to make that the default. And then maybe in a few months, I show up there on Saturday and I walk that trail and it feels good because and it's easier because I've run that pathway and it's now my new default. So I kind of think that's just a good way to think about it. And the fact that often we can have these shift once, but you want to run it over and over again. And I just think that's also a misconception with this work, especially with some hypnotherapy and things. People think, oh, I can just be changed instantly. And in a way you can, because you have all of a sudden a new access to a new neural pattern and a pathway, but it's not going to be your default if you don't run it or like work it over and over again and practice it. So I just want to remind us that that's kind of the way to move through this work. Okay. Any questions before we get into an exercise? Okay. All right, so this is an exercise that I designed over time just from working with clients, and this is something that I always do for myself when something's coming up. And we can kind of work through it today. If I was in a live workshop, which I love teaching so much better than doing it virtually, but we would actually sit down and do this together. But I will just kind of run through it, and maybe I could just give you an example for myself. And you will have these questions in the recording in the slides that you can ask yourself in the future. And I would really encourage yourself to do this so you can see this and experience it for yourself, because now you understand it cognitively, but I want you to experience it. Okay, so 3 steps to changing those limiting beliefs or that thought or that block, whatever it is that we talked about earlier. So again, having that awareness. So you want to identify the mental, emotional, or behavioral pattern that's keeping you stuck and bring that to the surface, right? It has, again, from unconscious to conscious. It's got to come up to the surface. And what you can ask yourself is when a negative emotion arises, you want to get curious and ask what thought or belief is coming up right now. Again, so simple. But because it's usually unconscious, you don't even think that you're having a thought or belief. You just think like, this is what's happening. This is me. This is how I react. You don't even have that awareness. So what thought or belief is coming up right now? So for me, it could be that I have to do this all on my own, right? That was my big limiting belief, my big repetitive thought and pattern. I have to do it all on my own. What emotional states am I entering? Okay, so for me, that would be fear, like, oh, can I do this all on my own? Frustration, it might be some anger that maybe other people aren't supporting me, and just like that high stress state, right? I can even feel it in my body kind of going back to that place, like, oh, I have to do it my own, like I can do it, I can figure it out, but it's not a positive feeling. And then what behaviors follow this thought? Okay, so for me, it would be that I would kind of isolate, right? I would disconnect and I would retreat from the support of family and friends and whatever. I would work harder, right? Work harder, Nicole, and do more and have more time and energy towards your business or whatever that is. And that would also create more stress, more anxiety, more fear. So you're kind of in that loop, right? And then just ask yourself, are these thoughts, emotional states, and behaviors serving me? Like, is this working for me? Again, maybe it worked for you in, a different time in your life, but is it working for you now? And how does it feel is a big question. Like, how does this feel in your body? If it doesn't feel good and it's creating stress and anxiety and frustration, then no, the answer is it's not serving you. It's not bad, it's just not supporting you any longer. Okay, now we want to move to the redesign part. So you have the awareness. And again, that's usually where I feel like mindfulness programs stop. Now we want to move into redesigning it, changing that perspective, changing that pattern so that you're changing those neural networks literally in the brain and running those. So this is where you get to choose. Like literally, it's as easy as that. You have a choice now. What new thought or belief can I put in place and set out to prove instead? So maybe for me, it's that other people really do want to support me and I can be exponentially bigger and better and more, loving because I have the support of others. So now I've set out to prove that instead. And then the last piece is repetition. Now you've changed the story and you believe you're capable of becoming this new version of yourself, but we want to put this into place. We want to make this your new default, just like the subconscious mind has made other things your default. So this new program or pattern is the one that's run instead. So you can ask yourself, how does this person show up and act every day with these thoughts and beliefs? What rituals and routines has this version of you committed to? So for me, it could be that when these situations arise, that instead of isolating and like figuring it out, I text a friend or I call a family member or I reach out to my, a support network of a list of people that are in my kind of business support system that I can ask for advice from, right? So maybe I'm showing up that way. Or it could be as simple as I'm sticking to my morning routine because I'm doing this work, I'm choosing a new pattern and I want to keep myself in a calm headspace and in a grounded space so I can choose this new pattern. I can instead default to asking for support and help. Because if you're kind of keeping yourself in a fight or flight state, then it's going to be hard to choose a new pattern, right? Because fight or flight, you're going to go back to what you know. You're going to go back to the past. You're going to go back to what's easy and what's energy conserving. So it could be as simple as just sticking to your morning routine and knowing, okay, that's supportive of me. I meditate every morning for 10 minutes. I move my body for 10 minutes and eat a healthy breakfast, right? So something as simple as that. So I would encourage you to just run through this process. And like I said, there's only a total of 6 questions if you divide this first one up. And I will run through these just in a journaling session in 10 minutes and be like, wow, there's the shift I need. That's what I need to do. And then move that way. And it is extremely powerful the more you can do it and practice making those shifts for yourself. Okay. So, and just the second piece that I just want to reiterate, let's just check the time. Okay, is repetition. So I always like to say that, yeah, your thoughts are the seeds to the mind. So now we've planted this new thought, but now we want to feed it. We want to, just like I said, run that path. We want to nourish it. We want to give it that time, attention, and energy. And this is the part that I think a lot of us miss because this is where some of the work comes in, right? This is becoming that new version of yourself. But we often just want to like have the awareness and not do the repetitive process. So you want to do that until it becomes the default. And I want to say that, and we're going to do just a little quick exercise in this too, but affirmations are a great way to do this. And I know some of you are probably like rolling your eyes because I was always that person when I heard affirmations, but I want to talk about this because they are extremely supportive and they have been and are extremely supportive of me and my clients because what it is many of us are doing them wrong is why they kind of get a negative rap, right? And so I want to talk about that. And let's say you have this new pattern or this new belief that you want to instill now. Well, an affirmation can be a great way to just set up that intention in the morning and design your day around it. So it's kind of like the first piece for those actions and that pattern that you've created. Okay, so this is why we aren't creating effective affirmations and what we can do to create more sustainable, powerful ones. So I always say that for affirmations, you really want to feel it. So it has to elicit emotion, because emotion creates the strongest memories in the brain, right? The strongest neural networks, the strongest connections. Like think about it, any event in your life, whether it's highly emotional in a negative sense or highly emotional in a positive sense, that's what you remember. You don't remember like the delivery guy dropping off your UPS package or something. There's no emotion, right? But if there is emotion around it, or some crazy, event happened, or the package was like something that you weren't expecting and it was beautiful and amazing, you would remember that. So you really want to feel it and bring emotion to it. And you also want to get specific. Like I have heard obviously thousands of affirmations, and so many of them are like I am worthy or I am lovable, right? But that's not specific. Like I don't feel anything when I hear that. Like I know it's true, but I don't feel anything. So you want to get specific and personal about it. And then you want to speak it in the present. So the subconscious mind really only understands the present because it's that primal part of our brain. It can't go out into the future. It can't go out into the past. So you want to speak to it in the present moment, as in the now. And then again, you want to repeat it. You want to say these affirmations in the morning. Maybe you want to put it as a reminder on your phone. I also have the Self by Design app. You can put it in there or find your own affirmations tracks, whatever you need to do to repeat it and bring it up for yourself while you're creating this new pattern. And it also helps remind yourself of that intention of who you're becoming. Okay, so just a few examples. And again, if we were doing this live, we could sit down and like work through, actually writing them out, and I could come around and support you on that. But I encourage you to also write your own affirmation for that block or that challenge that you mentioned earlier. And so for me, one that I used when I was working through accepting and receiving support was, I am open and accepting of all the love and support surrounding me. I thrive beautifully when I allow others to support my well-being. And that changed my whole life. Like it really did, by allowing others to, support who I'm becoming, by expressing who I am, by receiving that support. You can grow exponentially further, faster, whatever that is, with the support of others. And so let's see a few more. Maybe I am a vibrant and healthy person. This is possibly if you're working on up-leveling your health, your physical health, full of energy, and I show up every day in loving ways to support my health and happiness. I completely love and accept myself just as I am, with all of my beauty, flaws, and everything in between. And even for that one, you could even write out with all of my, what do you like about yourself? Add in 3 things. Flaws. What do you maybe not like about yourself? Add in 3 things, because you're working on accepting those, right? That's so much more powerful than just showing up and saying like, I am a beautiful person, right? Or the last one, I am living my truth and showing up fully to create the life I've imagined by taking inspired action towards my goals. So again, anything that creates that positive emotion. And I gave you a little script here for writing them. And this is something that I use. Again, I give it to my clients to support them, but I am, say it in the present, right? You want it to be now. And then those descriptive words. So this is why when you read a really good book or you watch a really good movie, a lot of that is in the language, right? They're creating these like visuals, and they're creating these emotions in your mind and body. So you want to add in those descriptive words that speak to those 5 senses. And then showing up as, so here's where you would insert your intention, right? Is it to be healthier? Is it to connect to others? Is it to whatever, grow your business? Whatever your intention is, how are you showing up? What's the action there? And make it specific and personalized to you again. So the more personal and specific you can get, the more this is going to support you. And then every day or whatever that is in the now, you want to state it in the present. And then I would even add in more descriptive positive emotions. And try this, like look at some old affirmations if you've ever used them, or even like Google affirmations online that are just generic, and then try creating your own. And you literally just need one for whatever you're working on, and you can see the difference. You can feel the difference. And I would guarantee with just saying it for a few days, you're gonna see that shift, and you're gonna move through your days as that newer version of yourself and close that gap like we talked about with that map from point A to point B a lot sooner and just a lot quicker than if you're showing up each day without much intention and without that repetition. Okay, so the last piece. Oh, we're getting close on time, so I didn't leave much time for questions, but we'll just move through this quickly. So learn to speak its language. So this is super, super important, is the subconscious mind does not speak in the verbal language, right? And that's why with the affirmations, you want to feel it, you want to get specific, you want to create a picture, because this primal part of the brain communicates in images, symbols, metaphors, and feelings. That's why the affirmations said cognitively don't work, because they're just words. But we want to tie those words to images and metaphors and feelings, and that's where you have the real shift, because you're talking to this very primal part of the brain that doesn't really have that language or that capability. And so this is why I think just about every client I've ever had says, I've been in talk therapy for a really long time. That was me too. But you're in your conscious mind in talk therapy, right? You're just talking consciously, and you're not a lot of, I mean, there's definitely a lot of progress that can be in therapy, but there's a lot of times when you're just talking consciously about it and you're not getting into the subconscious and those patterns and programs. And then I like to say the NLP, hypnotherapy, meditations, guided visualizations, that's all subconscious, because you're creating feelings, you're getting back into the body, you're seeing those visuals and tapping into those emotions. So you really just want to get that gatekeeper, the conscious mind, out of the way, get into a calm, restful state. And you can do that with with yourself, like with a guided meditation app or whatever that is, or with a certified practitioner. But it's really just creating those visuals that elicit those emotions and feelings to get down into the deeper layers of yourself. Okay, and I'll just quickly say doors to the subconscious. So these are just some modalities and ways that you can access that. Mindfulness meditation, again, that's very much practicing. You're doing that focused attention on the body, on the breath. Vipassana, we talked about this in another masterclass, but that body scan, just really feeling your sensations and like what's coming up for me unconsciously, you're able to recognize, oh, when I hear this or say this or think this, that happens in my body, right? Or visualization. So guided imagery, so powerful. The way that you see images in your mind, often when I'm working with somebody and they're like, I'm terrified to go to work in the morning or have that conversation or whatever, we'll look at what it looks like in their mind. And 99% of the time, it's like dark and maybe it's not clear and it's just, like really close to them. So it's really big and it feels really powerful and overpowering, but we want to change that visualization. So it's more, it's bright, it's light, it's supportive of you. Stream of consciousness journaling, this is a big one for me. So literally just writing, and yes, that is word-based, but you're not, the conscious mind is out of the way. You're not thinking about, do these words make sense? Is this in a organized fashion? You literally just write whatever comes out, and you will be amazed if you allow yourself to go to that space, what actually will come up for you. Hypnotherapy is another way to do this, or just painting, drawing, dancing, right? I have an exercise that I love to do with people where it sounds crazy, but I will actually, especially if you're hitting a major block, I will have somebody do, there's a progression of 4 steps, but you actually create a dance around that problem or that symptom. And then we take a look at what that dance meant after and dissect it a little bit. And it is amazing what will come up for you, because when you're dancing, you're not thinking about what the moves mean. You're just moving. But then when you take a step back and add in the conscious mind, you can see exactly what that was communicating to you. So yeah, fun stuff like that. Okay, last thing I'll say, so true transformation. See, yeah, we're like right on time. True transformation. So all change happens at the subconscious level. So if you want to change who you are and who you're being, in the present moment, you have to work at that identity and belief level. And when you learn to access the power of your subconscious mind, you can get to the root, like really down into those deep layers of those beliefs and those behaviors, and really create that long-term transformation. So, and I always like to say this to anybody that I've encountered, especially in these, master classes and coaching calls, is just thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. This is huge. You've taken, an hour of your day to invest in yourself and to invest in all of the relationships around you, right? Because as you're becoming a better person, you're affecting those around you, you're leading by example, and you're creating a better life and a better world for you and for everybody else. So give yourself a ton of credit for being here today, and I am really grateful for that. Oops, wrong way. All right, and so yeah, I offer private coaching. Self by Design method is clearly a lot of what I just talked about, but pulled into this program. We create your clear vision, so mapping out from point A to point B. We do the subconscious redesign. So once you know where you're going, then along the way, there's a reason why you haven't got there before, right? All this stuff is going to come up, and you have a guide and somebody to work with you through it while you meet that destination. And then that integration, that highest self reunion. So again, I never want to just consciously talk about this stuff or be the coach that's like designing your vision and then telling you to go ahead and execute on it. You want to feel it, experience it, and integrate it into your life. And I also do a mindfulness leadership training, 6-week training. If you're an HR professional on this call or somebody that is working for an organization, we have this mindfulness training, and it's basically this coaching program, but wrapped into a 6-week leadership training. So a lot of the same methodology, kind of my own spin on mindfulness. And you can kind of, yep, go ahead.
Oh no, finish what you were saying, and then we have a couple questions at the end when you're ready.
Okay, sure. And then, yeah, for this, and we'll just move this, you guys will have the slides in the recording. So this is just kind of the layers of the program. And I just also wanted to say a huge thank you to NextGen EAP, because what they're doing is so much exponentially better for EAP programs, which traditionally just provide prepaid counseling. They've created this holistic model, and they brought in the mindfulness training, which is what we're doing today. They bring in health advocacy, wellness coaching, any sort of kind of holistic model to support the employee in all facets of work and life. So thank you for being, a sponsor and a partner in this mission. Okay, now questions. Sorry I didn't leave much time. Anybody that wants to stay on, I'm here for questions.
Yeah, so one of the first question was, again, from Jeff. He wanted to know, what triggers do you use to make yourself pause? And this was when you were kind of talking about recognizing certain behaviors and patterns in yourself.
Oh, what triggers you use? So for you, really, and again, this is going to be unique to each individual, what you feel triggered by, right? Like something could happen for you that you feel like is impactful and emotional, and for me, I'm not even bothered by it. So it's, again, creating that awareness and recognizing when you have a sensation usually coming up in your body about something that was said or something that you have to do, or even just a thought that you're having, alone or in your own introspection time. You want to be able to recognize that is a trigger for me, if we're going to kind of call it that, because that it elicits, or it triggers, it creates a response in my body and in my nervous system. And so that's an indicator that there's something there for you, right? It's almost like that's an opportunity for you to explore, because it's created this response for you internally. And so now you're like, ooh, okay, wait a second, there's something here. I can learn something, I can explore this. And then you want to kind of go into what we talked about for, okay, what does this trigger create? What's the response? What do I believe about it? Is it serving me? And then creating a new response that's more supportive of yourself, and then putting in the ritual to design that new one.
Awesome. And then Natalie asked, do BFRBs have to do with the subconscious mind or the DNA?
What is it, BFRBs?
Yeah, she used an acronym. I'm not exactly sure what she meant there. I'll ask her and see if
Yeah. Maybe we can get back to you via email on that one, but I'm not sure what BFRBs mean. And maybe, okay. Yeah.
And then Carol wanted to know, what are you thinking about Master Key System?
Oh, Master Key System. Yeah. So that's a lot of law of attraction, right? And yeah, I absolutely believe, again, that's a good way to move through life. And it does talk a lot about changing your identity and your beliefs. But I always want to say with that, because I read that as well. And I also read, what is it? The Secret is that's really good to know and cognitively understand, but think about how many millions of people read those books, watched the documentary, but haven't changed their lives, right? Because you want to get that into the subconscious, you want to practice it, you want to experience it, and that's the part that most of us are bypassing. And so I always just want to encourage you, like, great, I love that you've read that, I love that you know about that. Now we want to integrate it, now we want to be it and become it, and that's going to create your outward reality. So I'll just say that. That's
awesome. And Natalie did follow up here. She said, it was body focusing repetitive behavior, and she wants to know what that has to do with the subconscious mind, if it has to do with the subconscious mind or the DNA.
Oh, yeah. So I think it sounds like it's very somatic, and anything that has a somatic tie is very subconscious, right? Because again, the subconscious mind is responsible for your body, for your sensations, for your emotions, for your biological processes. So that's why oftentimes if somebody's really struggling, I'll just be like, okay, let's stop talking about this. Let's stop trying to figure this out. And let's just like get back in your body through a dance. Even when you're doing art, like painting or drawing, you're more in that bodily sensation. So anything that's more somatic like that is going to be somatic and subconscious work, if that makes sense. Like that's accessing it in that way. And you always want to go there, but then tie that consciously again too, right? Because let's say you tap into that bodily sensation and you realize that this is coming up or that you feel this, but what is that connection consciously? And that's where the true change happens. So yeah, it's definitely related if it's anything that has something to do with somatic and body work. And I would encourage you to look into that. And you can email me more about that too. I see it here, body focused repetitive behavior. Yeah, exactly.
All right, and there's one last question from Jonathan, though this may be a larger talking point, but he wanted to know, would mindfulness practices impact the quality of dreams and sleep in a positive way?
Ooh, that's a fun question. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to say a big believer that mindfulness practices can affect all areas of your life. And I would definitely say it impacts sleep. I haven't studied this extensively, but because mindfulness training calms your nervous system, changes your nervous system, right? And reduces those levels of anxiety and depression and all those things that we talked about in previous master classes, then it is absolutely going to impact your sleep. And I would even say create at least better, more kind of supportive dreams, right? Like sometimes I know if I'm working with somebody or if I've had this myself, if I'm in an anxious state, my dreams do seem to be more anxious or provoke those kind of feelings in my sleep state. And then doing that meditation, doing that mindfulness work, your dreams are much more calmer because your body and your nervous system are in that restful, deeper sleep. So yeah, I would absolutely say that there's a connection there, and I'd be interested to learn more. Maybe a whole other webinar on that. Good question. Okay, anything else?
That seemed to be all the questions.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you everybody for showing up today again. And yeah, feel free to reach out. Here's my contact information if you have any further questions. We'll be sending you the recording and everything within hopefully tomorrow, if not by Friday at the latest. And yeah, again, just thank you for showing up. I love doing these. I love hearing your questions and just really grateful to have this experience and be here with you all. So have a great rest of your day.